BNY Mellon, the world's largest custodian bank, is exploring tokenization and blockchain. And they have connections and deep connections to Ripple. So don't go anywhere as we expose the connection between BNY Mellon and Ripple and what that's going to mean to you as an investor. Hang tight. Let's dive on in. So before we dive into the BNY Ripple connection, let's talk about the SEC because this here will play a bigger part of the news story that we're covering in this video. So right here from CoinDesk, you have SEC aiming to formalize innovation exemption by the end of the year, Chair Atkins says. While the government shutdown is slowing the SEC's work, Atkins said he still intends to initiate formal rulemaking by the end of 2025 or beginning 2026. So what does this mean and how does this connect to BNY Mellon's announcement? Well, this essentially is going to give institutions the green light to proceed crypto adoption while also not worrying about the SEC penalizing them any other way. They're giving the green light to turn a blind eye, essentially. So we have seen this in 2020 during that crisis where we had to turn a blind eye to streamline certain things to get it to the public because of the need for that. That's where we're sitting right now when it comes to crypto adoption. As you know, the US wants to be the number one provider for crypto in the world. And this here is a step forward to make that happen. So they're willing to turn a blind eye and not scrutinize as much as they typically would. So how does that tie in and how does BNY tie into Ripple? Well, let's keep going. I'm going to exactly break this down for you so don't go anywhere. So let's start right here from Washer Guru. So that story about the SEC came out October 7th, and this here also came out October 7th, okay? So it says, just in, world's largest custodian bank, BNY Mellon, is exploring allowing tokenized deposits and blockchain payments. I personally like how they bring this out as this is major news. But if you're actually following the stories and you've been around for a while, then you know this isn't anything really new because BNY Mellon has been looking at tokenization for quite some time now, and I want to show you what I'm talking about through some news stories. So let's keep going. But before we get to those stories, if you don't know BNY Mellon, it's important to understand how massive they truly are and why this is a bigger deal than a smaller bank coming out. Because with BNY Mellon coming out and saying they're willing to do this, that gives the green light to the rest of the banks that, hey, if BNY Mellon's moving, then we too can then move into crypto as well. So let me show you how that works. Well, let's start right here with BNY Mellon from CoinDesk, gives you a little bit of background on them. And this is October 7th as well, so you'll see a lot of news stories around this coming out. But it says BNY Mellon trials blockchain deposit to overhaul the $2.5 trillion payments processing. The effort aims to enable near-instant settlement and potentially reduce transaction costs with tokenized deposits moving over a blockchain. So that's huge because you hear $2.5 trillion. That's annually, right? It's not annually. That's a mislead for the public that does not know how big BNY Mellon is because $2.5 trillion is huge. But let's keep diving in a little bit deeper into BNY Mellon and expose a little bit more here. So let's look right here. This is going to be from the block, and they do give you more of a understanding about BNY Mellon. So right here, you can follow along with me. It says BNY's Treasury Service Unit processes roughly $2.5 trillion in payments a day. $2.5 trillion in payments a day and oversees about 55.8 trillion in assets under custody and or administration. So BNY Mellon is a massive player, and it's super important that you understand how BNY Mellon is the leading bank for America, okay? They are one of the top movers for America. Again, that's a big signal for the rest of the banks to be okay with that crypto adoption by having them signal they are moving forward with it. So keep in mind, every other bank wants to be like BNY Mellon, just like if you're in any other business, you want to outperform your competitor. And that's how they would see that as a bank, okay? Let's keep going and let's talk about how this isn't anything new. I want to provide a couple of stories to show you that, so let's keep rolling. So right here, this is from Investopedia that came out July 23rd, 2025. The date's important, again, just because I'm trying to expose how it's not so much of a new information coming out. They've been talking about it for a while. It says Goldman Sachs, BNY Mellon step into tokenized money market funds. Again, July 23rd, 2025, they've already been talking about tokenized market funds. So they've already looked at this technology, and it goes much deeper than that. I won't waste too much time on this video. I do have other videos showing you how crypto has been around for much longer than they try to tell you it has been. But let's keep going, and we'll work on BNY Mellon, and we are working up to the Ripple connection. Don't go anywhere. I just want you to understand the bigger picture of BNY Mellon and why it's important. So let's keep going from this story here from Reuters, and this is dated August 12th, 2025. BNY appointed investment manager for Open Eden's tokenized U.S. Treasury Fund. And again, BNY Mellon has been working with the U.S. Treasury Fund being tokenized. This is nothing new. They have a giant plan in place. They're just now allowing us, the public, to start slowly seeing their plans unfold, okay? Nothing new. Now, let's move into the Ripple connection. That's probably what you're really here for. So let's look at the connection with Ripple, BNY Mellon, right here from BNY Mellon's website directly. Just for the record, if you are new to this channel, I do leave all my sources in my description, not my pinned comments, my description to the video that has all my sources linked. So you can always go in and pull these sources up and read through them yourself and educate yourself further. That is my goal here. So hopefully you use that source and you pick it up and move forward for your own. Okay. So let's keep going from here. It says July 9th, 2025, Ripple, the leading, not a leading, the leading provider of digital assets infrastructure for financial institutions, announced it has selected the Bank of New York Mellon Corporation, a global financial service company, for primary custody of Ripple USD, aka RLUSD, which is Ripple's stablecoin. Okay, so now BNY Mellon is the primary custody of RLUSD. You can see how huge that really is, but we are going to keep going. This is not the top of the story. I have more, and we're going to go deeper from here too. Okay. As reserves, Ripple and BNY are jointly committed to paving the way for digital assets adoption and institutional scale, and together are bringing the gap between the traditional finance and crypto ecosystem. So how this is working with this crypto adoption, they're not really trying to replace them as much as they are going to be working on side by side and bringing them to the new age. Yes, these banks will be getting fade out over time, or at least certain ones will. But that's not their main goal, is to straight up replace them right away. It's going to be a slow transition, and you look back 20 years from now, some banks will be faded out, and the ones that don't adopt and get on board will be gone, okay? But the bigger picture here is you have Ripple and BNY being the leading forefront of bringing crypto to America. So anybody that's a crypto hater or a Ripple hater or XRP hater, you're missing the bigger picture if you're too focused on being mad about it. So really step back, open your mind up, and say, hey, is this possible? Just look at the information. That's what I'm hoping you're doing. Okay, so let's actually dive into now the price action of XRP, and let's see how this correlates with the stories, because if you are new here, and if you are familiar with the channel as well, you know that I like to relate the news stories with the price of the asset, because they always seem to fall right in line, almost coincidentally, wink, wink, right? So let's check out CoinMarketCap XRP. So right now the price is $2.88. That is the timing of this video of October 10th. So if you're watching this in a later date, don't get mad if it's a different price. But what I really wanted to point out here is these stories came out October 7th. And I want you to follow along with me on your screen so you can see how this tends to always work. And if you start paying attention to this trend here, you'll see how whales and investors truly move. So right here, you'll see the height of, October 6th is about $3.04. The story comes out October 7th, and you start seeing that dip as that story comes out. And keep in mind, these investors know before the public knows, before retail knows. That story hits, and then we just see this massive drop off. And people think, oh, that's bad news for XRP, when no, that's good news, because that is when the bigger investors will be selling the top and buying the low, okay? And you're also probably wondering, hey, if this is great news, then why don't we see that price being reflected? This is where I need you to really listen up and pay attention. So when a bigger investment firm buys these assets, they don't buy them through Coinbase. They don't buy them through your exchanges. They buy them through something called a dark pool or something called OTC. When they buy these options, they do not reflect the exchange's price because the exchange does not see that movement. It's almost as if it's under the table kind of purchasing that the public does not see. So that's why you cannot see the mass influx of the price, because it does not hit the exchange. It stays off the exchanges, so they don't know that product is being moved back and forth. I hope you understand that. If you don't, definitely dive into more about dark pool and OTC buying options for assets. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Okay, let's go back to Ripple BNY connection, because this is where it gets a little bit deeper and you understand how connected they truly are. And it's no coincidence, guys. So check this out. This is from Ripple's website directly. But first, I need to point out that if you have been following the channel for a while, this right here is a video that I did cover. I will put it down in the pinned comments for you if you are interested in that, if you're new here. But we actually go a little bit deeper dive into Ripple and explain how they are much deeper connected than they like to let on. But let's read about Sandy. Sandy O'Connor is recognized financial industry thought leader with a career spanning over 30 years. She retired as Chief Regulatory Affairs Officer for JP Morgan, where she set the regulatory strategy and led engagement with G20 policymakers. If you don't know G20 policies, we're going to go over G20 and who they are. There, she previously held senior position including Global Treasurer, Head of Prime Services, and was member of the Executive Committee. She supported the integrity and efficiency of capital markets as chair of the Federal Reserve Board's Alternative Reference Rates Committee and as a former member of the Treasury Markets Practices Group sponsored by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. She now serves as a task force on financial stability and the FDIC Systemic Resolution Advisory Committee. She is the director of Bank of New York Mellon Corporation and Terex Corporation. So through her experience and background, she is super connected to all the policymakers and people who truly move the market. So that's why Sandy and Ripple, they are extremely connected. Is all I can really say here. But let's keep going and let's talk about the G20 and who is that if you're not aware, because this is where it gets a little bit deeper and a little bit bigger picture for you to understand. This is not a coincidence here, guys. So what is the G20? So this is actually from the World Economic Forum's website too, so you know it's a valid source. So the G20 is a forum of the largest economies in the world that meets regularly to discuss the most pressing issues facing the global economy. Together, the G20 accounts for around 85% of the world's GDP, a percentage that has grown in the past 20 years, more than 75% of the global trade, around 2/3 of the population on the planet. It consists of 19 countries, 2 regional bodies. The current members, I'm not going to read them. I will leave them up on the screen for you so you can check that out. But you can see that all these countries that are connected to the G20 happen to be the countries that are adopting crypto much faster than the other ones. Again, ask yourself, is that a coincidence or is that a game plan? I'll let you decide that one. But hey, let me know down in the comments what you think about that. That's what I have as far as the connection between Ripple and BNY Mellon. If you made it 12 minutes in, then you're still watching the video. You probably watched a couple of my videos before. So if you watched the one from yesterday, I need to announce that I did make a bit of a slip up here. And if you watch this one here from yesterday, the Ripple Secrets Revealed, I was covering the SHX story. And in that story, I did say that you can buy SHX on upholdandcrypto.com. This is where I'm transparent and admit my mistakes. Somebody called it out and said they couldn't find it on Uphold. And I went back and watched that video and I absolutely said upholdandcrypto.com. My apologies. I do research several videos and several topics at once. I'm working on a ZBCN ZBEC video, and I'm also working on this one here for a later date. So when I try to do these videos, sometimes I guess I mix my stories together. I won't let that happen again, and I sincerely apologize to anybody that may have confused, but I'm addressing it. It won't happen again. I will be better about that. Okay, so that's all I have for you on this video. If you liked it and you enjoyed it, as always, please like, share, and comment. And until the next one, as always, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and become the change you want to see. I'll see you on the next one.